Well, hello. Yeah, this is a brief little video. I hope it's brief. I hope I can say it fairly quickly. That I'm wanting to use this as a way to say that I'm not going to get any COVID or any further vaccinations whatsoever the rest of my life. Now, I haven't gotten vaccinations in quite some time. I think it was back in the 80s when I was working with the Navy. That I got vaccinations. I haven't had any since then. I don't believe in them. There is still no actual science to demonstrate that vaccinations work. I know they say they do, but that's because they have an agenda. Our American allopathic medical system is actually designed around making money for the doctors and the pharmaceutical companies. That's it. That's all it's around. They don't care about getting us well. Now, that's something you need to understand. Because when I say I'm not getting a vaccination, I mean it. I'm not getting a vaccination. If they do, I want it clear. The reason I'm giving you this video, I want it to be made perfectly clear that if I get a vaccination, it won't be because I accepted it or allowed it to happen. I will resist with every ounce of strength I've got. I'll do every single thing I can, including filing a constitutional lawsuit against the action. I'm going to do a lot of things if I have to, but the main thing I'm going to do is argue from several different perspectives, and I want to explain these so other people will know what my perspective is. Number one, this is a First Amendment issue under the Constitution. It's a Fourth Amendment and a Fifth Amendment issue. First Amendment because, number one, the federal government will be establishing a religion. It's already established a religion. It's just that it's informal. It's an informal action at this point. It's the religion of healthcare. They want us to believe that doctors are all-knowing and all-wise and everything they say is true, correct, and absolutely without flaw. The reality? No, 150-year-old science dictates that, first of all, the COVID virus, there's no virus. There may be a patented chain of proteins that they bothered to patent in order to have a patent to say, this is the virus. Well, 150-year-old science, not making this up. This is 150-year-old science. Do the research. If you go back, they say, follow the science, okay? When you follow the science, it leads to the original conception of what are these organisms involving germ theory. Okay, germ theory still hasn't been proven as well. So there's a flaw in all their thinking that germs are the cause of disease and always have been and are the only cause of disease. That bacteria, mold spores, things like that, fungus, and viruses are the causes of disease. And that they're all communicable. Now, little known fact, the only time that I'm aware of that this theory has been tested, communicability, was in the 1918 flu epidemic, where they wanted to test the theory with living human subjects, which is, in many cases, they would argue unethical. But the fact is, this test was run. This test was run, and the results did not match the ones they wanted. So guess what they did? Squashed it. They've quashed it so much, nobody knows that this test was even run, except the research, which you can find. It is available. You have to dig. They had 10 healthy men be coughed on in the face, 6 inches away, 10 times by 10 sick individuals. So this was in combination 100 separate opportunities for communicability. What the results were? Astonishing. Not a single healthy man got sick. Not one. Not one. Out of 100 attempts to communicate the disease through coughing in the face, nobody got sick. Well, now this is information that I've known about for a long time, but that's because I've done a lot of independent research that says, gotta question what these people are telling us. I questioned a lot of this back in the AIDS epidemic. Now, if you talk about the AIDS epidemic, what you have to be aware of, two things. Both Fauci and Birx were involved in that farce, another farce, monumental farce, because it was false. Everything about it was falsely done. The study included San Francisco, Chicago, New York City, and Houston, and they were examining gay men and gay bathhouses involved with a lot of sex, and they were trying to figure out why these guys were getting sick. Well, I think there are a number of factors that we're obviously not controlled for. Now, what you need to understand in all of this is a protocol that was designed by Dr. Koch back in the 1800s, intended to say, if you want to say that this particular germ causes this particular disease over here, you have to be able to do the following things. You have to isolate it from all other possible causative factors, and then you have to be sure that none of the other causative factors are involved in the experiment. And it has to cause these symptoms 100% of the time in 100% of the cases. No variabilities involved. It's no way are you going to say that this disease is caused by this particular virus if it goes, quote, like they say, dormant. Viruses don't go dormant. 150-year-old science says that viruses are non-living tissue. They don't live. You can demonstrate this by extracting a virus, putting it in a petri dish of growth media, and watching what happens. Nothing. Doesn't matter if you leave it for weeks, for months, or years, nothing happens. Do you know why nothing happens? Because they don't eat, they don't excrete, they don't multiply. They just sit there. They can't move, so it's non-motile. It just sits, okay? Not the same as bacteria. Bacteria will jump in and munch that down. They will multiply, divide, have babies by the trillions, and you'll have a dish full of bacteria. It's a cultural process, a culture process that every lab technician is exposed to early on in their training. This test has been performed, I don't know how many tens of thousands of times. Viruses are not alive. They cannot mutate because they cannot divide, they cannot multiply. The theory nowadays is that viruses live, that they can jump species, that they can fly through the air with the greatest of ease, land on your nose, and wind up in your knees. It's all sorts of crap that they're telling you these viruses can do. Viruses cannot do that. Never have been, never will be able to do those behaviors. They can't move. So as far as making an interspecies jump, non-existent, totally impossible. So when they jump on and on and on and on about all of this stuff, telling a lie 1 trillion times through 1 trillion different people in 1 trillion different ways, but all of them saying that same lie verbatim, doesn't change the fact that it's a lie. It's still a lie. And when you want to talk about vaccines, vaccines still have not been demonstrated to be effective at accomplishing anything other than making the person ill. Now, they do make you ill because of what they're made of. They're made of poisons, compounds, heavy metals, various serums made from foreign animals like cattle and pigs and horses and monkeys. And you're going to inject this stuff directly into the muscle tissue in a human being. Guess what happens? The immune system says, whoops, there's a lot of crap here I got to get rid of. So what to do? Everything it has to get rid of it quickly because it's toxic to the human body. And it can make you very sick. Now, making you sick doesn't mean you've caught a, quote, virus. Viruses, that's the only way you're going to get one in you, by the way, a direct injection, because viruses don't crawl up your arm and slither in under your fingernail. They can't move. They don't move. They're not going to land on your tongue, and if they did, it's going to wind up in your digestive system. What's your digestive system do, by the way? Reminder, it digests proteins and vegetable matter, whatever else you put in there, gone like that. Now, what everybody's saying right now about this is an absolute lie. Doesn't matter that it's been repeated tens of 20 or 20 trillion times through all the media on the planet by all the idiots willing to say this crap. They're saying it for political reasons and political reasons only. They want Trump out. Oh, well, get up, grow up, be a man, and admit the fact that your side lost the election. Oh, well. Trump hasn't done anything illegal. And even that they lie about. So there's so many lies in our culture right now through our media and every other mechanisms of indoctrination and propaganda that there's no way in the world any of this You're going to be bludgeoned to death by it, essentially. You can't escape it. But saying it a trillion times, like I said, doesn't change the fact that it is still a lie, fundamentally a lie. So when I say I'm not getting a vaccine, the reason being there's still no scientific evidence to demonstrate that vaccines work. They don't work. There is no scientific evidence that shows that they do. They don't give you resistance to anything. What they do is make you ill, period. And with heavy metals in most cases. Those heavy metals have to be disposed of by the body in some way. So yeah, it does incite a reaction in the body, a repelling reaction that says, get this out of me as fast as possible. Now, when you sweat, people, I'm saying these things because I want you to be aware of why I am not going to get a vaccination. The mythology is so large and so pervasive at this stage. You need the antidote. The antidote is the truth. There are other medical understandings of what happens when you get ill. They have been around for thousands of years, longer than allopathic medicine. Allopathic medicine has decided that we're going to go with this storyline because it can make us tons of money. We don't need to get people well. We want them to stay sick so that we can give them a continuous barrage of pharmaceuticals and treatment. And we can give them vaccines, and we can tell them how often to take those vaccines. And if we want to, we can try through government to make those vaccines mandatory. Well, if you do make them mandatory, I'll go into that in just a minute. I want you clear as to why the body, that people say, I don't want you distracted by the fact that people get sick every so often. People get sick on a pretty regular basis, on a seasonal basis, not because of the flu virus or any other damn virus. Viruses don't do that, okay? Viruses are toe tags for trash in the body. Viruses basically collect the stuff and flush it out of the body. I've heard it said they're like a solvent. They carry off the bad crap and flush it out of the body. That's what they do. That's what they've been observed doing, as to the extent that you can observe them. What they know now in Western medicine is that everywhere they look in diseased individuals, there are viruses. Well, the reason there are viruses is that they're there to carry off the trash, the toxic material inside the body. Viruses are manufactured in the body, by the body, for the body, to tag that trash and get rid of it. That's what they do. They carry it out of the body. They don't live outside the body since they're not alive inside the body. They're toe tags. Toe tags are not alive, okay? I don't care how many times they'll tell you otherwise. They're lying, and their agenda is because they've either been, number one, indoctrinated to the point where they don't understand even their own science, or number two, they know the science and they're ignoring it because they have an agenda. And the agenda is not to do good things for people. So you need to understand that. What happens when people get sick seasonally is because that's usually around the spring and the fall. Reason for this, very simple. That's when temperatures are moderated around the planet, generally speaking. Spring and fall. You're going from a hot summer into a cooler fall, heading for winter. In the middle, there are these periods of time when it's wonderfully comfortable and less stressful on the body. So what the body do? It triggers an automatic cleanse. We're going to go cleanse now. We're going to dump all these toxins we've accumulated, get rid of them, get them out of the body. What happens in the winter? Same thing. Why do people do it in groups? Well, because we live in groups most of the time, and we're psychosomatic individuals. We tend to trigger response. You've heard of women synchronizing their periods if they're living together in the same house or the same dormitory at a campus, or they're on the same ship in the Navy, in the military, in the same platoon. They will coordinate because it's their rhythms sync together. It's what happens. It's a natural biorhythm. It's just what happens, folks. It's not a virus being communicated from one person to another. It's a psychosomatic trigger. It's an acknowledgement, not consciously, but the body is saying, this is a good time of year. It's comfortable. I don't have to work as hard. So I'm going to flush out my toxins now. And you're going to sweat. You might run a fever. because it depends on how toxic you are. In our society right now, Western culture, most countries are full of toxins. We put it on our plants. We soak our meats in it with various injections, things of that nature. Most people are extremely toxic and they don't even realize it. There are toxins in the water. There are toxins in the hair shampoo. There are toxins in the conditioning rinse we use. There are toxins in our hairspray, toxins in our toothpaste, toxins in our mouthwash, toxins in our drinking water, toxins in our bathing water. We're exposing ourselves to toxins all the time. If you spray for weeds in your yard, massive toxins, guess what? You get exposed to that. It gets in your body. Your body wants to get rid of it. So when it triggers and you sweat and you get a fever and you maybe vomit or you maybe have diarrhea, these are methods the body uses to dispose of the waste, the accumulated toxins that have built up. They've got to be gotten rid of. So, hey, now's a great time. Get rid of them. That's what the body does. And it may be more often than that throughout the year, depending on how toxic you are and what you're exposed to or what you allow yourself to be exposed to. It makes a difference. It really, really does. If you're reasonably healthy and you stay away from most of the toxins, it does take deliberate effort on your part, and you've got to be consciously aware of it. And you've got to eat wholesome foods that are essentially, basically organic, if you can get them all. The more you can do, the better your system's going to be. And this is the problem. That's what happens cyclically. People die from other diseases, but in most cases, if you want to talk about diseases like the really bad blood one in Africa, most of the people that get that are incredibly malnourished to the point that they're dying and their body begins to break down. So the cell membranes break down and their body tissues, their blood leaks and goes all over the place. It's a nightmarish way to die. But it's what happens when the body degrades to that extent. And it's due to malnutrition, over toxicity, to the point where you've got to get rid of it. If you want to understand the theory, you need to understand what happens when you get exceedingly drunk. I know most people have done this a time or two in their lives. And you can't even stand up because you're going to get so nauseous that you're going to vomit right away. So what happens? It's your body getting rid of the toxins. You might break out into a fever. You might sweat like crazy. It stinks to high heaven. And you're going to vomit. And you may not stop vomiting until you settle your system down. Everything you do like that creates the same dynamic in the body. When you get over toxicity, you got to get it out of there. This is how that happens. That's what happens. Not making this up. This is raw, basic science. Raw, basic, very simple, and without an agenda. I'm not trying to sell you anything. I'm not trying to tell you I'm a doctor. I'm not practicing medicine. I'm telling you, this is the raw data they don't want you to know, because they want you to believe that doctors are sacrosanct and the new royal holy priesthood of religion known as medicine, American medicine, and health care is your new religion, whether you want it or not. Well, that's why this is a First Amendment issue. It's a religion. They're telling you, have faith. I know what I'm talking about. Do as I say. And I don't have faith. I don't have any confidence in them whatsoever, because I know the real science, the raw science. It's there. You can research it. You can find the actual, this is where the experiments were done, and these are the people who did it. It's all out there. You can find it and research it yourself. I say, go do that. Do your homework. Right now, after you've gotten out of school, it's all homework anyway. Stay with it. Don't stop. Now, it's a First Amendment issue for the religious aspect of the government establishing a religion. It's a Fourth Amendment issue because I have a right to be secure in my person. First part of the Fourth Amendment. You need to understand that. Secure in my person. This is my person. Nobody else gets to decide what goes in it. Me, I do. You want to tell me I have to submit to the government's new religion, and part of that submission is an act of acquiescence to being injected with toxic substances on a schedule and a timeline established only by the whims of the federal government, because the federal government wants me to. Okay, that's the Fourth Amendment issue. The Fifth Amendment issue is they decided all of this without due process on me. I need due process. I need a review of the facts. in a court of law that says, okay, government, prove your case. Prove your case. Prove it. Don't just say, well, we know this works because. No, you don't know that vaccines work because of smallpox. That's a flawed assumption. The science demonstrates quite the opposite. In fact, what was going on simultaneously with the smallpox inoculations worldwide was we were coming out of essentially an agrarian-based economy, moving into a more industrial-based economy, and we were moving into the cities out of the country, and we were upgrading all of our, this is just in the United States, but it also happened in every single country around the globe. Over time, we improved our sanitary living conditions in the households. We put flowing water, plumbing. We upgraded the systems so that the water wouldn't get contaminated by anything flowing around, the bacteria. And we put in additional things like chlorine to kill other toxic things in the water that were alive. And you got to do those kinds of things. You got to get rid of the protozoa and the bacteria and the algae and the other fun stuff that can cause problems for people and contaminate the water supply. So we had fresher water, we had toilets installed in houses now instead of having to go out in the yard and deal with the shack in the forest for all of that. All of these upgrades occurred simultaneously in culture after culture around the world, alongside of the smallpox inoculation. And in fact, in countries where there were no smallpox inoculations, smallpox eventually died away because health conditions improved. Now, sanitary conditions are a factor in everything we do. And when we talk about the AIDS epidemic, I want you to be aware, briefly, what's flawed about that study is that they didn't control for gay men's predilection for oral to anal sex. Happened a lot. If you do engage in that behavior on a regular basis, you're going to get ill, period. You're putting all the bad stuff in all the wrong places. Not a good practice. In addition to that, they did not control for the use of poppers. All the men in that study documented in the study that they used poppers on a regular basis, daily basis, 4, 5, 10 times a day, it didn't matter. And they all engaged in active, unprotected sex with lots of men all over the place. So none of those are healthy factors. But Dr. Fauci and Birx decided to extrapolate from the, quote, infection rate of those communities to the rest of the population at large, which is, generally speaking, heterosexual for the vast majority of them. And their practices are not those. They are not the same at all. Heterosexual couples don't have sex that often. Generally, it's just with their partner, and they generally don't engage in oral to anal at all. For the most part, no. So, and do they use poppers? Most people don't even know what poppers are. Poppers are amyl nitrates. Amyl nitrate, they call them poppers because they used to be in those little glass ampules that were wrapped in fiberglass or some other fibrous material that you could pop the glass without cutting yourself, but still get the inhalant through the fabric. And they were used in women who were swooning or in childbirth. They realized that this has a detrimental effect on the immune system, so they quit using it. Except for gay men in gay bathhouses and other people who are inclined to use them. I don't know. I don't use it, never have. No interest in it. But they didn't control for those factors. So if they want to say it's a virus that causes HIV, the first moniker for that particular illness is acquired immune deficiency syndrome. And it's acquired through a set of behaviors that are basically a syndrome of behaviors, and they're very unhealthy. So that's what AIDS is really caused by. Bad behavior. Stop it, and you'll get better. Especially if you clean up your life and stop using poppers. Just stop it. Anyway, that being said, it was Dr. Fauci and Dr. Birx who decided to make it known that it's not the behaviors. It was a virus that they had sitting on the shelf. They identified, actually it was identified over 100 years prior to that, and that particular virus was known as a, quote, passenger virus. It didn't do anything. No symptoms associated with it. So they decided to take it off the shelf since they had it and put it to good work where they could make money. And they did. And they're still trying to do the same thing now with this new coronavirus. It's crap. It's a myth. It's not real. There's no way you can be infected because it's not living. It doesn't jump. It doesn't fly around the room. It's not real. It's a fiction. Always has been a fiction, and the people in the know this very, very well. The rest of us who are finding this information, or for maybe the first time, I've known about it for decades because I did the studies a long time ago. I didn't have all the source material. Now I do. It's a great book, What Really Makes You Ill. Quote, subtitle, Why Everything You Thought You Knew About Disease is Wrong. It's a great book. You should look it up. And you should buy it or get the free download PDF online. Look for it online. It's What Really Makes You Ill. Brilliant book. Very well written. You should have it. You should document every single thing I'm telling you. Don't just take my word for it. But this is why I'm doing what I'm doing. I'm not going to take a vaccine ever. Period. The end. The rest of my life. No, not happening. And I'll file lawsuits if they want to compel me. That's what you're going to get. Lawsuits. It's going to go to the constitutional level, and it's going to go there immediately because all of my arguments are predicated on that. The next argument in all of this, after the first religious issue, the second being the Fourth Amendment right to be secure in my person and have control over my person, and then the Fifth Amendment right to due process. This is a total denial of due process. Beyond that, the next problem is even more serious, because if the government presumes that they have the right to then tell me I must, because of the general overriding interest for the health of the world, because if I don't take that vaccine, I'm potentially a carrier of a deadly virus that nobody's actually proven exists yet, and nobody's actually proven is communicable, and nobody's actually proven that germ theory is even correct. So there's no evidence to indicate anything that they tell us is correct. That's what you need to understand. There is still no scientific evidence to indicate any of these things they're telling us are true. So if I say no, and they say, yes, you must, and we will force you to do it, then what they're doing is notifying the world that chattel slavery has returned to the United States and been returned formally by the federal government, because they will be saying that the government now has the right to decide what happens in my person, in my body, in your body, in anybody's body. And if they're going to go to that level to get me to take an inoculation that I know is toxic and horribly destructive to me, then what they're telling everyone on the planet is chattel slavery will have returned to the United States, and we are the slaves. We're not free anymore if they want to compel inoculations. And I don't care whether they do it through your employer or through mandatory. You have to prove that you've gotten an inoculation before you can come shop at this grocery store. It's chattel slavery. They own us physically, totally, and completely if they're going to compel us to have vaccinations. So I would caution anyone and everyone on those issues, First, Fourth, Fifth Amendment, and the reestablishment of chattel slavery. So they're starting a new religion. They're taking away my rights to my body. They're denying me due process. And they're making us all slaves again by telling us we are property of the federal government. I'm not making any of this up. That is the ultimate outcome of their actions if they attempt to compel. They might try and dress it up and say it's all voluntary. You don't have to do this. Well, you do if they're going to deprive you access to the benefits of civilization, such as food and water and electricity and natural gas to heat your home with, or anything. That's the problem. So they may wind up killing me pretty soon. Don't know, don't care. At this stage, I'm not so sure I want to live in this world anyway, because at this point, it's been taken over by a whole bunch of idiots, and I'm not one of them.